Vanguard. It's a card game where you can become a leader and fight your way to victory.
Imagine it. Imagination becomes your strength.
Hey, what's up, card fighters? In this Asha deck profile, we're going to be running 8 grade 3s, 11 grade 2s, and 14 grade 1s. To start off our list, we're going to be running 4 copies of Dream Spinning Asha. Its continuous Vanguard Circle skill allows it to get plus 10k power, and as long as we have 3 or more Ashas on the field, you get plus 1 critical. So, this is really easy when you think about it, is because the Asha Flower Fairies take Asha's name. And then also, you can have your rear guard circle have a trial deck Asha as well. So you can essentially just ride once and gain these benefits. And if you don't ride again, as long as you have the Fairy Flower tokens on the field and everything, you can still benefit from the critical and do some early game pressure. Next, we're going to be running 4 copies of Ranunculus Flower Maiden Asha. This Asha came from the trial deck, and it's a really good rear guard, mainly because you want to pay the cost and have 3 Ashas on the field so you can, get the additional crit when you're on Dream Spinning Asha. But at the same time, its first skill generates tokens as well. It creates up to 2 tokens for 1 counterblast. And this deck uses a lot more soul than counterblast, so it shouldn't be too hard. You might want to just ride Dream Spinning Asha and just call the trial deck Asha to a rear guard circle. But you need to remember, the fairy token can't get boost. So just remember that it copies the Vanguard. So, it doesn't matter where you put it. It might be best to put it behind the flower token or even behind your Vanguard if you really need to. You don't have to have it in the front row. To start off our grade 2 lineup, we're going to be running 4 copies of Blossoming Maiden Sela. Its first skill allows it to, avoid being retired by card effects as long as you have a card with the same name as your Vanguard. So, aka your Fairy Flower token or even your Rearguard Trial Deck Asha shares name with Dream Spinning Asha. So, boom, there you go. Although a lot of decks and everything don't really retire, a lot of the major decks that you might deal with during tournament and stuff, it's like Narukami, Link Joker, they bind instead of retire. But when you do go against like the retiring decks like Kagero, it'll come in handy a little bit, and it gives it plus 5k power, so it's a 15k by itself, which is really good. Now, its second skill is where we get the utility from. The Counterblast one to create 2 tokens really allows us to, utilize our Counterblast at least a little bit and hopefully create the Fairy Flower tokens to even get that plus 5k and that, don't touch me skill. Next, we're going to be running 4 copies of Osmanthus Maiden Anelma. Anelma has its amazing ability, its second ability. If you have a rear guard on your rear guard circle with the same card name as your grade 3 or greater Vanguard, all of your units get boost. So this is where placing a trial deck Asha behind your Vanguard Asha really does make sense. People might look at you like you're weird and anything, but when you have, it's a free 13k boost. If you just called it that turn, if you just called the trial deck Asha that turn and used its skill to create the tokens, then that's a 23k boost to your Vanguard. Now remember, do not push. If you have an Anelma in hand and you have a trial deck Asha in hand, make sure you put the trial deck Asha behind the Vanguard. Do not put it behind the Fairy Flower token because it won't benefit from being boosted by anything because it copies the Vanguard's power exactly. So the boost doesn't matter for the Fairy Flower token. Its first skill, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, draw a card and call up to 1 plant token. You really want to do it for the draw. You're not really doing it for the plant token. Yes, the plant token will help you if you're really in a pinch and everything, but at the end of the day, you really do just want to draw cards sometimes. Maybe you want your pieces and everything like it, but you don't have to be forced to use the skill and everything. It's the bread and butter is from its second skill, and that's what you're going to get the most utility out of. To end our grade 2 lineup, we're going to be running 3 copies of Rendo Musketeer Ontario. This is a 5k in grade 2. It's a tech because when placed, one of your Vanguards get plus 5k until the end turn for each of your token units. Maybe before you call the Fairy Flower token or even after, you can boost your Vanguard at least by 15 and make it even a scarier number. And if you're able to have that crit, it makes your opponent have to guard a lot from both your Vanguard and the Fairy Flower token itself. This really is just to pump up Asha and make it a little bit more scarier. But this is a lot more helpful when you have the crit and when you can guarantee the crit too. Because a big number ain't really anything if it just does 1 damage early game. A big number that does 2 damage, now that's something that you need to watch out for. For our grade 1 lineup, we're going to be running 4 copies of Valkyrie of Reclamation Padmini. Now, Padmini is our generic Neo Nectar searcher, and having your grade 3 is important. We only run 8 grade 3s, but there is a chance that they might be at the bottom of the deck, or they might not be in your hand. And sometimes you need a really specific Asha. Sometimes you really want to just ride Dream Spinning Asha instead of Trial Deck Asha. Not to mention in anything, during your turn, if you have 2 or more token units, this unit gets plus 5k, so it makes it a 13k boost or a 13k attacker if you really need to. Next, we're going to be running 4 copies of Maiden of Sweetberry. Now, Maiden of Sweetberry is our soul charger. We use soul a lot. We kind of needed this card in the deck, and we run it at 4 because we want to soul charge as much as we can when we place this unit. But again, you need to be at grade 3 just to soul charge, so you don't really want to ride this on your first turn if you can help it. Yes, it calls a plant token, but you don't really need your plant tokens until you're on Asha and everything. Like our plant tokens is not Sephiroth. We don't have intercepting plant tokens. We have boosting ones. So having them on the field every turn isn't really necessary. Having our fairy flower token is the most important thing in this deck. Next, we run 4 copies of Maiden of Blue Lace. Maiden of Blue Lace is our once per turn Soul Blaster that just allows us to create another plant token. When we're going against decks that retire or bind, they're going to try to get rid of our Fairy Flower token. Even people who don't retire or bind, they're going to attack it at least once or twice. With Maiden of Blue Lace, it allows us to, generate more tokens, retire said tokens, and bring back our Fairy Flower token, and hopefully, close out the game as soon as possible. Because the best thing you can do is at least have 1 token behind the fairy flower token so that you can have an easier chance of paying the cost and bringing that fairy flower token back. Last but not least, we're going to be running 2 copies of Blowball Squire. Now, Blowball Squire allows you to create 2 tokens for free as long as you don't have any tokens on the field. 2 free tokens, and then hopefully you can pay the cost and get a fairy flower token soon after. Now, this is important, especially late game or even early game, when you don't want to waste the soul, you don't want to waste the counter blast and everything, or maybe you don't have those cards in your hand, and then you can just make sure you can keep the pressure up and swing with technically another Vanguard, and hopefully, advance the game forward as soon as possible. Before I let you go and everything, remember, triggers are a personal preference. I believe running crits is important, but running draws is important too because I'm not lucky. That's why I still run the draw trigger perfect guards. I have not really tested out this deck with the 12 crit, the critical sentinels and a lot of other criticals in the deck and everything. I feel like because Asha gets Dream Spinning Asha gets a natural crit, I don't think it's really necessary. I run Force 1 because a bigger Asha means a faster game for me. You gain a natural crit, so you don't really need Force 2. You don't gain numbers in a sense unless you use Rindo, and then maybe of course Asha skill gives a 10k, but it's not those numbers aren't as threatening as having 2 Force 1 markers on the Vanguard circle, and then having a crit thanks to Asha's skill, having the plus 10 because Asha's skill. It's not as threatening as Force 1. To keep you updated and everything, to give you a better idea of what a good field looks like for this deck, is to have Anelma on Rearguard Circle, Dream Spinning Asha on Vanguard Circle, Trial Deck Asha behind the Vanguard because it gains boost thanks to Anelma, and then the Fairy Flower token on the other Rearguard Circle to hopefully, swing and pick up some slack when your opponent. The most important thing to remember is never make the mistake of giving the triggers, power, and crit to the flower token. Because remember, the flower token matches Asha, whichever Asha you have on your Vanguard circle. So that crit that it gets disappears because it increases or decreases to match your Vanguard. So never give it a trigger. Always give the triggers to your Vanguard. Or if you really need to get rid of a unit on your opponent's field, have another rearguard, a grade 2 or grade 1 in your front row and give the triggers power to that unit instead and try to get rid of that rearguard that's bugging you. But yeah, this deck is really fun to play. I believe it's not as difficult. It's not as complex as people might believe. You know, of course, you gotta have this cards with the same name and everything. But because of the grade 3 searcher, that's a little bit easier now. If you go second and everything, you know, you can discard your quick shield to pay the cost if you do add a grade 3 to your hand. And yeah, like this, remember guys, this is a deck profile. It's a template, not set in stone. So please tell me what you think and everything. Have you changed the deck at all? What have you tried? And yeah, like the set comes out tomorrow. According as I'm recording this, set comes out tomorrow on the 10th. So just tell me your pulls and everything. I would love to hear what you guys pulled. I will even tweet at me. I would love to see your guys' pulls. Did you get like any of the clan packs? Did you get any amazing art like SP Ashas at all? And yeah, I hope you guys have a nice day, and I hope your pulls are amazing.